نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا أنفقوا من طيبات ما رزقناكم صدق الله العظيم. So we have been covering the chapter of Zakat. Alhamdulillah, we covered all the ayats and ahadith which makes zakat obligatory, and then we covered the wisdoms and the benefits in the last session. What are the wisdoms and benefits lies in paying zakat, how it affects individual's life, his family life, and the society in large. And if one doesn't pay zakat, and if zakat is not paid properly and not distributed properly, what harms are caused by it, and what destructions happens in the society. So alhamdulillah, we covered it all. Now today the important part is about to start. That two things we are going to cover. One is that upon whom zakat is obligatory. What are the restrictions in a person, and what are the restrictions in the wealth, in the commodity, in the good, which are required to make zakat compulsory on a person. So first we are going to cover those restrictions which needs to be found in a person. If those restrictions, conditions are found in a person, then he is obliged to pay zakat. The zakat becomes compulsory upon him. So there are three conditions which needs to be there in a person. First of them is he has to be sane. There is no zakat on an insane person who has lost his mind. And we'll cover this in detail. The second person is the one who he has to be adult. He has to reach the age of puberty. So those kids, those children who have not reached the age of puberty yet, and they still have that amount of wealth which makes zakat compulsory upon them, still they are not going to be obliged to pay zakat. Number 3 condition is the person has to be Muslim. So there is no zakat on a non-Muslim. So these are the 3 conditions: sanity, and the age of puberty, adulthood, and the third is that a person has to be Muslim. The person has to be Muslim. So there is some detail in about each one of them. The first one, like I said, a person has to be sane. So there is no zakat on an insane person. Now there is some detail in it that there are 2 kinds of insanity. One is permanent insanity, and the second is temporary insanity. So permanent insanity is that a person he was insane when he became baligh, when he reached the age of puberty, and he became baligh, he reached the age of puberty while being insane. So this person is going to be considered permanent insane. So the many years he spent in this disease of insanity, he is not going to be obliged to pay zakat for that many years. So let's say a person, he was insane when he was 12 years old, and he reached the age of puberty when he was 13, and he was still insane in that year. So, and he stayed insane until he reached the age of 15 or 16. So there will be, even though he has this much wealth which oblige zakat upon him, still he doesn't have to pay zakat of 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years. These 3-4 years he doesn't have to pay zakat. But if a person, he was okay, he was sane, and he reached the age of puberty when he was sane, and after reaching the age of puberty, after some time he became insane. So now there will be two situations. One is that insanity which occurred after him reaching the age of puberty, did it stay throughout the year or some part of the year? If it stays throughout the year, then there will be no zakat. But if it occurred for some part of the year, and then he recovered and he was cured, so then he still have to pay zakat. This is about the temporary insanity. But what does it means by who Shariat Deen considers an insane person? That person is considered insane. That person who does foolish things, he is not considered insane. Insanity in Shariat means that a person has no idea of what is good and what is bad, what is beneficial for him and what is harmful for him, and he has no idea what is he saying and what is going to be the result of his actions or his statements. So the one who has lost his mind to this extent, that person is considered insane. So, and one thing related to it which ulama has mentioned is being fainted, falling unconscious. So if a person is fainted and he falls unconscious and he stays unconscious for a whole year, throughout the year, he is fainted and he doesn't gain his conscious back for the whole year, still he is going to be liable to pay zakat. So being fainted and being unconscious doesn't prevent zakat to become compulsory upon him. So being fainted is not like being insane, in other words. Now the second condition is for a person for the zakat to become compulsory upon him is that he has to reach the age of puberty. Now, so all those children, all those kids who have not reached the age of puberty yet, no matter how much wealth they have, they are still not obliged to pay zakat. So normally what happens, that the parents, they buy some gold, some jewelry for their young daughters who have not reached the age of puberty yet, and if that jewelry, if that gold is not given to them, if it was just bought for them but it was not given in their milkiyat, they are not made owner of that jewelry, so then it's going to be considered the ownership is going to be for the parents, and the parents has to pay zakat. But if the children are made, if the daughter is made the owner of that jewelry, that the mother or the father, he says, okay, this jewelry I bought for you and you own it now, and no matter they don't give it to her, they keep it with themselves, but if they say it that it's your ownership now, it's yours, that's what makes the jewelry their ownership, and then the parents are not liable to pay zakat on it. So, and the daughter, she has not reached the age of puberty yet, so she also is not obliged to pay zakat. So this is the second condition, that the person has to reach the age of puberty. Now, Allahu Akbar. But the only thing in this is that when the parents make the daughter owner of that jewelry, then the parents themselves cannot use it. It's going to be the ownership of the child. So she can only use it, or with her permission they can use it. That's the only thing. Now, these are the three conditions which needs to be found in a person in order for zakat to become compulsory upon him. Now, there is a lot of detail in the commodity. What are the commodities on which zakat becomes compulsory? What kind of wealth, what kind of goods on which zakat becomes compulsory? This is what we need to learn. So there need to be 6 conditions found in the commodity in order for zakat to become compulsory on it. Now, that wealth, that commodity, that good which has 6 things into it, 6 conditions are found into it, then zakat becomes obligatory on it. Number 1, the commodity has to be the business merchandise. If it's a business merchandise, if a person has bought it with the intention of selling it, then zakat becomes compulsory on it. Or if it's not a business merchandise, then it has to be either gold or either silver or either cash or either animals. If the wealth or the commodity is one of these kinds, then the zakat is compulsory on it. Otherwise, there is no zakat. Second condition is that the commodity and the good this person has, it is not purely haram, purely prohibited. Let's say a person has pigs. So pig is purely prohibited and 100% prohibited. A person cannot use it, cannot buy it, cannot sell it. It's a pure prohibited thing. A person has, let's say a person is the owner of wine, of alcohol, that is purely prohibited thing. So that commodity should not be purely prohibited. Now, number 3 condition in the commodity is that a person has to be an owner of it. The person has to be the owner of that commodity. So if a person, I have something with me which I have intention to sell it, but I don't own it. Someone else have given it to me to sell it. So so there is no zakat on it. I'm not supposed to pay any zakat on it because I'm not the owner of it. So the third condition is that the person should own it. Number 4 is, after being the owner of it, a person should have full control over it, to give it or to take it or to move it around, or a person should be able to make any decisions about it. A person should have full control over it. So if a person has a business merchandise and he owns it also, and it's totally pure, it's not prohibited, but he doesn't have any control over it, someone else has it, so still there will be no zakat upon it. So a person has to have the ownership of the commodity, and he has to have full control over it, to make decisions about it, to have full control to use it. Then zakat becomes necessary. Number 5 is that commodity has to reach the amount of nisab. It has to reach the amount on which zakat becomes compulsory. Now, I'll explain this. What is the nisab? What is the amount which makes a person liable to pay zakat? What is that amount? So not every commodity or not every good is liable. It makes a person to pay zakat upon it. So the amount, the value of it has to reach the amount on which zakat becomes compulsory. So there are 2 values. One is the value of gold, and the second is the value of silver. So through the gold, the value is 3 ounces of gold. So 3 ounces of gold nowadays is like 4,478. So let's say a person doesn't have anything with him, he only have gold. So if the gold is 2 ounces, he doesn't have any other merchandise, he doesn't have any silver, he doesn't have any cash. So all he has is gold with him. And this gold it reaches 3 ounces of gold, the value of 3 ounces of gold, the amount of 3 ounces of gold, which is 4,478. So he has to pay zakat upon it. But if a person, and then through silver, the zakat, through silver, the value, the nisab is 21 ounces of silver, which is nowadays $277 only. So $277, right? So let's say a person have a business merchandise and it reaches this, the value of that business merchandise reaches the amount of this, the value of this much silver, which is $277. Then he has to pay zakat on all of his merchandise. And most of the people do own this much money. Most of the people, most of the businessmen, they have this much merchandise with them that reaches this. So zakat will be necessary upon them. So this is the amount on which zakat becomes compulsory. Nisab, which is called nisab in Sharia. So through, let's say a person, it's just some detail everyone needs to understand, that gold, the gold value is a lot more than the silver. So gold value is going to be considered only when a person only has gold, he doesn't have anything else. But if a person, he has gold also, he has silver also, he has some cash also, and he has some business merchandise also, then all of its value has to be considered with the value of silver, not with the value of gold. So if a person has everything, then we're not going to go through the value of gold, we will go through the value of silver. So this is only one rule which we have, which everybody needs to understand. Now number 5, number 6, the sixth condition which has to be present in the commodity, in the good, in order for the zakat to become compulsory, is on that commodity and on that business merchandise or whatever you have on which zakat is becoming compulsory, one entire year has to pass. So let's say I bought a business merchandise, I bought a merchandise, I wanted to sell it, and I bought it with the intention of selling it, and now I bought it on the 1st January. Now, it is equal to the value of 21 ounces of silver, let's say. So on the 1st January, I become obliged. I become the person of the owner of the nisab. I become sahib nisab. Now I don't have to pay zakat on the 1st January or the 2nd January. I don't have to pay zakat until the next 1st January. So now let's say today I bought a merchandise with the intention of selling it, and the merchandise I have, it is the value of it is $10,000. So now throughout the year I'm going to be keep on buying and selling, and keep my merchandise will be keep on increasing, decreasing, but the value on which I have to pay zakat is going to be considered the value of the next 1st January merchandise. So 1st January 2020 I become liable to pay zakat. Now after a whole entire 1 year, 1st January of 2021, I will see how much merchandise for business I have. So let's say I have now, after 1 year, the merchandise I have is $20,000 or $25,000. So I will pay zakat on that $25,000. This is how it works. So there are 6 conditions. One is that it has to be bought as a business merchandise. Second, if it's not a business merchandise, then it has to be pure gold or pure silver or gold silver with cash, or it is cash, or it is or a person owns animals. So on animals there is another concept of how the zakat needs to be given on animals. So we'll read that on the cattle. We will read that in the end. But there are some details in the business merchandise also. So Quran does talks about this, that Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu anfiqu min tayyibati ma kasabtum, that or the people, or those who have believe, you should spend from the pure earnings of your pure profits of your earning. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also, Sahaba used to say this, Kana Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam ya'muruna an nukhrij as-sadaqata min alladhi nu'iddu lil-bay'. He used to ask us to pay sadaqah, to take out charity from the profits we earn through business. So now, like I said, the commodity, if it's a business merchandise, then zakat becomes compulsory on it. Now, how to determine about a commodity that it is a business merchandise? So 4 things needs to be present there in order for it to be considered as a business merchandise. Number 1 is that commodity, that good which you have bought with the intention of selling it, with the intention of business. So a person who is a businessman, who is a shopkeeper, whenever he buys his stock, he buys the stock with the intention of selling it. So that's called business merchandise. Number 2 is, after buying it, he still have the intention of selling it. So let's say a person bought it with the intention of selling it, but after buying it, after becoming the owner of it, he says, no, I'm going to use it for myself. Let's say a car dealer who has many cars, who buys and sells cars. So he buy a car in order for selling it, so zakat is compulsory. But after buying it, after becoming owner of it, let's say he likes the car, so he says, okay, no, this one I'm going to keep it for myself, I'm not going to sell it. So as soon he will change his intention about it, zakat will be lifted from that. There will be no zakat about it. Number 3, that commodity which he has bought with the intention of selling it, with the intention of as a business merchandise, has to reach the amount of nisab, which we just discussed. Through silver is $277. Number 4, Allahu Akbar, so if all these 3 are found, that a person bought it with the intention of selling it, and he still have the intention of selling it, and it reaches the amount of nisab, and after all of these 3, the 4th one is 1 year has to pass by on it. 1 year has to pass by. So let's say a person, like the example I give of the 10,000, a person begins his business with the $10,000 worth of goods, and then throughout the year he keeps on buying and selling. So after 1 year, whatever goods and whatever stock he has is going to be valued, and on that value, on that day's value, he has to pay zakat. Now, there's some detail about the intention. How? So, for any commodity to be considered as a business merchandise, the first restrictions I said is it has to be bought with the intention of selling it. So, when this intention is going to be considered as the intention of selling it, what are the restrictions for it? So there are 2 restrictions. One is, actually there are 3 restrictions, that commodity of which a person has bought with the intention of selling it, it has to come into his ownership with his own action. So that thing which came into his ownership without his own action, on that the intention of selling it is not going to be considered. I'll give you an example to understand. The example is, let's say a person's relative passes away, his father or his son or anyone, and he is the inheritor of that person, or inheritor of that disease. He is the heir of that disease. So now he will become the owner of the inheritance. So now the commodity which has come into his ownership through inheritance has came into his ownership without his own action. He has not said anything, he has not made any transaction. So the inheritor who becomes the owner of inheritance, he becomes the owner of inheritance without the ownership. So that's why on that inheritance, if he makes an intention of selling it, it is not going to be considered as a business merchandise. No matter he sells it, that still he's not going to be liable to pay zakat on it. Now number 2 is that transaction which he has made to become an owner of that commodity. He has to pay something against it. He has to pay a price for it. Let's say a person gifted me something, so I accepted it. It came into my ownership with my action. I accept the gift, right? But I didn't pay anything behalf of it. I never paid any price for it. So on this gift, if I make intention of selling it, it still is not going to be considered as the business merchandise. Same way, like the woman, if she takes khula, she takes divorce from the husband, and she says to the husband, I'm going to give you this much money and you divorce me. So that's called khula. So the husband, if he receives some money behalf of giving divorce to his wife, that money is also came into his ownership with his action, but he has not paid anything in return. He has not paid any price for it. So that's why on that money, or on that any commodity which she has given to him on behalf of divorcing her, he is not able to pay any. Although he makes an intention of selling it, he will still not be liable to pay zakat on it. Number 3 is there are 4 restrictions for the intention has to be for the intention needs to be considered as intention. Number 3 is a person has to make intention of this thing which he is buying with the intention of selling it. This intention has to be made right at the time of transaction. So let's say if I bought a thing for someone, but my intention was just to use it for myself, and then later on I made the intention of selling it, then this intention is not going to be considered. The zakat is not going to be liable. Let's say I bought a house, and I bought this house with the intention of using it myself. I'm going to live in it myself. But after buying, let's say after some time, after 1 month, I decided, no, I'm not going to live myself, I'm going to sell it. So even though I made an intention of selling it, still this house, I'm not going to be liable to pay zakat on it, because I did not have the intention of selling it at the time of transaction. So the niyat has to be there at the time of transaction. This is the third condition. Fourth condition is the intention has to be firm, not doubtful. So let's say a person bought a house with the intention of selling it, but he has doubt. Maybe he's going to sell it, maybe he's going to use it for himself. So because of this doubt, there will be no zakat. So if you have firm intention that I bought this house just to sell it, then there will be zakat on this house, or then there will be zakat on this commodity. Let's say a person buys an extra car. Now he has doubtful intention. Maybe he's going to use it for himself, maybe he's going to sell it. Same thing. There will be no zakat upon it. So there are four conditions which needs to be there in order for a commodity to be considered as a business merchandise. Number one, that a person has bought it with his own action. Second is the person bought it with his own action and he paid a price for it. And the third is, while buying it, he had the intention, at that moment he had the intention of selling it. And number fourth is that he had firm intention, not doubtful intention. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the right understanding. Inshallah, we will cover all other in next sessions, inshallah. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun.